This week on Reproductive Rebel, we're diving into one of the most illuminating frameworks for pleasure and intimacy, the Sexual Erotic Blueprint. I'm joined by Sacha Fossa to explore why you want pleasure the way that you do, how your body is wired for arousal in this blueprint, and how to understand that this blueprint can actually deepen intimacy with yourself and others. This isn't about techniques or performance. It's about listening to your body's language and reclaiming your own erotic energy as a source of healing and power. Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an East Asian medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women to live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your health, offering holistic solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are. I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show. Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel Podcast. I am so excited to continue our journey through the sexual blueprints with Sacha Fossa. Welcome back to the show, Sacha.
Thank you, Adrienne. The erotic blueprints.
The erotic blueprints, yes. Today we're talking about sexual. Can you tell that this is top of mind for me? So Sacha and I have, and if you haven't been on this journey with us so far, okay, Sacha and I have had a conversation about Tantra. We have had a conversation about the energetic blueprint. So this is working through the erotic blueprints. That is the work of Jaya. And Sacha is an expert in this area. We had kind of given an overview in one of our past episodes. And I really wanted to do a deeper dive into each of them because I feel like there is a big misconception, and of course, the misconception is the episode that we're doing today, that a lot of people think it's just instant arousal and we're going to go straight to doing the things, the P and the V, go hard, go home, and then we're done, right? This is what we see on TV. This is what we're socialized to believe, and that isn't the experience for a lot of people. So I'm so grateful that Sacha has agreed to do this journey with me. And so if you have not checked out the overview episode, the energetic blueprint, and the sensual blueprint episode, I would highly recommend you go back and do that. A couple of them are at the end of season 4, and the others are at the beginning of this season 5. So take a look at those episodes, whether you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to the audio of this. Sacha does an awesome job at elaborating and explaining how these all work, how they show up in our lives. And today we're going to do a deeper dive into the sexual blueprint. So for those of you who haven't been on this journey with us, Sacha, if you want to give a little overview about who you are and what you do before we jump in.
Sure. Thank you. I'm Sacha Fossa. My business is Sacred Temple Arts. The sacred temple is your body. And easiest way to find me is my website, sacredtemplearts.com. I'm a licensed blueprint coach, but I do a lot of different things, including teaching Tantra. I custom design programs for all of my clients, including sex, intimacy, relationship, and wellness approaches, basically to sexuality and to the empowerment of creating your best sex and love life, as I like to call it, so that you're loving your life more. And this is for everyone. It's not just for people that are partnered. Your body is your primary relationship. And we want to really, to be the best lover, you have to be your own best lover first. So I work with individuals and couples and do deep dives. And I love incorporating the erotic blueprint work into everything. And all of my programs actually come with a special Jaya extra program that people get that you can find out more about on my website. But that's basically a good start, I think.
Yes, absolutely. So, just as a quick overview, we talked about arousal through the energetics of things, meaning you don't have to be touched in order to be turned on. And some people don't even realize that, yet that is a really powerful one for some people. We talked about the sensual, which is all about the senses. And today we're going to talk about the sexual. So take it away, my love.
All right. Well, I definitely encourage everyone to find out your blueprints through the Erotic Blueprint quiz, which if you go to my website, look under Erotic Blueprints, you'll find where to take the quiz. The free one doesn't really give you any good information, and it's just an algorithm of whatever your top one is. You want the paid report. It's well worth 30 pages of great information. It'll also cover some of what we talked about today. We're going to look at the positive aspects of this blueprint called the sexual, the shadow sides, how it's compatible or not in some ways with other blueprints, its superpowers, and just kind of dive deep into it. And what I do with each of these podcasts that we've been doing, which is really fun, I get to dive into the blueprint deeper in an embodied sense. So I don't actually wear red lipstick a lot or a lot of makeup. And I am just like, let's go sexual. And for me, that was red lipstick, more makeup today, more severe kind of hair look, plunging neckline, getting into my sexier little leopard kind of look. With each of the blueprints, I kind of dress. I will talk in the blueprint. My voice will be a little lower today, a little different than it might have been with sensual or energetic. It's like, no, we're talking sexual today. Right? Because we want to learn to speak in the blueprints as well. There's an art to speaking in each of these. And the sexual just really is the most straightforward in many ways. And it's the most typical of what we think of around sex and sexuality. It's kind of like the cultural norm of what we've been programmed to believe. And yet there are all these other blueprints that are just as important and valid. So anyways, the sexual is our focus today.
Yeah.
Getting into the down and dirty of the sexual.
So for those of you who are listening to this episode, any of the episodes that I have done with Sacha, I would encourage you to go check them out on my YouTube channel, the Reproductive Rebel Podcast, because she brings visuals. You get to see the embodiment of these blueprints or the archetype kind of energy that we're talking about for these episodes, but really like the way she was dressed for Tantra and all of those kinds of things. I would highly encourage you check out the visual if you are listening to this on audio as well.
Yeah, thank you. Awesome. And to just always expand out too, if you could have a high sexual blueprint and never do anything that seems to be that cultural normie kind of sexual, right? So going with just the energies of it and understanding more the characteristics and how it plays out for you personally is always what's most important.
I think that especially for women, the sexual blueprint is a complicated relationship.
Oh, yeah.
Would you like to elaborate on why? I can think of lots of reasons.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because the sexual blueprint should be uncomplicated in many ways, and that it's so straightforward. So sexuals, it's pretty simple, right? They like to fuck. They like visuals, nakedness. I thought about I should just come to this podcast naked, but I didn't trust myself not to suddenly accidentally expose that I should. So I figured put some clothes on. I move around so much with the Italian side of me. I was like, nah, I don't think you should do that. But sexuals just like to be naked, right? And they like to see people naked. And they're very much about just arousal 0 to 60, uncomplicated. This is in the positive sides.
Mm-hmm.
They like frequent sex, right? Give it to me now. I want it now. I get aroused fast. Let's go. Let's fuck. Let's do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in our culture, if you're a female like myself who had a high sexual blueprint at a young age and in adolescence especially, and a lot of times we're adolescents, right? Our hormones change everything, of course, right? In puberty. So boys are getting more testosterone and so forth, but girls are changing too. And we're getting this new levels of arousal in our body and turn on. And for me, I mean, slut shaming was a huge thing back in my Gen X world of growing up. And so women can feel like there's something wrong with them because they're overly sexual if they have a high sexual blueprint. I was called a nymphomaniac, lots of lovely, and just a lot of slut shaming. I like dressing slutty. I liked the sexual blueprint. It was like fun for me until it really wasn't. And I had to shut it down because it seemed to offend people. And that's really hard because in a female body, what's wrong with wanting to play with our sexualness and to explore every blueprint, every part of ourselves and be true to who we are? It's much different now. I mean, just look at Instagram or anywhere. It's like, okay, sexual blueprints out everywhere. But it also has become, it can be a false way of leading as well, you know, of putting on all the like, oh, I'm so sexual and like hot and in the sexual. And then the person actually doesn't really have that blueprint. Right. So it's all of it. But yeah, for women, I mean, you know, our culture norm is that men are more sexual, women are supposed to be more sensual. And it's interesting because that's not how we're actually physiologically wired. Women, but that you can go back to my Tantra podcast to learn more about that. The women actually have limitless sexual energy, where men's is limited. So it's kind of like everything we've been taught in this reality is the opposite of the truth. In case anyone hasn't noticed that lately. But
Seriously.
especially when it comes to sex. So if women are like the limitless powerhouses of sex energy and all the blueprints or certain ones that they express more in, right? That's hard though, when it's in this reality supposed to be more of demure, or you should be more into romance and the sensual, or more motherly, or whatever the ways of judgment and imprinting and programming can go, whether we buy it for ourselves or we become accustomed to it because it's in our everyday world in some way, right? But I've surely personally had a difficult relationship with the sexual because I wanted to let my sexual freak flag fly. And when I did, I was really outcast, big time. And I got myself into a lot of trouble in different ways, but that's because of a different lack of boundaries and other things in trauma history and so forth. It's not the blueprint itself. So I've actually been reclaiming this blueprint big time. And yet I'm single again. And I have found that it's tough because if you lead as a woman with your sexual blueprint, your sexuality, you tend to end up getting men that are only interested in that instead of someone that might be more partner material. Now, that's just personally my experience and some of what I've seen and some of what some relationship dating coaches, it doesn't mean that's for everyone. Everyone needs to make their own choices of how they do things. But I do find that it's frustrating when I want to play in my sexual and be that full, let's fuck.
Yeah.
You know? And it's a turn off because it's coming out of my mouth as a woman instead of a turn on. So that can be something that's still kind of going on, right?
Well, and I think you made a really good point about boundaries. And I kind of want to come back to that too, because there is this very delicate line when you're walking in this blueprint between being very wired as a sexual blueprint and having people not honor your boundaries. Because just because you are sexual and you are interested does not mean that you're not holding integrity and boundaries. And I feel like in our culture today, we really fuck that up.
Yeah. Yeah, for
In
sure.
a big way. And it makes it very unsafe. Also, coming back to your point around safety, security, and an embodiment of this archetype, like I feel like it opens the door for people to step across the threshold where there's actually a boundary there.
Yeah. It is changing. We can see the changes happening.
It is.
Which is a really positive side of things. I mean, I look back to when I was, again, like in my early adolescence and had like my first job at the fudgery, and mini skirts were in then. But of course, I liked really short mini skirts. But that wasn't an invitation for my boss to put his hand up my skirt, who was like 15, 20 years older than me. But at the time, it seemed like it was on me that, what are you doing wearing that, right? And then I can't wear what I want. And I have to dress differently and I have to act differently because somebody else overstepped, But these days, I mean, women are wearing skirts a lot shorter than I ever wore one.
Yes.
And it is much more in the mainstream awareness. That's not an invitation to stick your hand up your skirt. Right? So we have come a long way. But again, there can still be a lot of judgment about that, right?
Yes. Well, and that's the thing. I think we've talked about that whole Usher quote in a previous episode, a lady in the street, but a freak in the bed, right? We have a lot of expectations of what women's sexuality, quote unquote, should look like, instead of just being able to honor the truth of what is true for them.
Yeah. Find out their blueprints. Right?
I encourage clients.
And then to be able to express, well, these are my blueprints. This is why I like to express this way. This is what turns me on. To be able, as we've mentioned throughout these series, the love languages, everyone should know, and I teach all of this in my work too. How do you like to be loved? And so the blueprints are the sex or intimacy languages, how you get aroused, how you like to be turned on. And these are just so vital for understanding ourselves, our own bodies, how they change, how the blueprints might change, what blueprints we might want to explore more of and learn more about, and how we relate to others. I mean, Jaya has a really great saying of there's no incompatibility. It's just speaking different languages. And I really believe that in many ways. I mean, there's incompatibility if somebody's a narcissist or an unhealthy relationship and things like that, but we're not talking about that right here. We're talking about couples, individuals, people that are butting heads in the bedroom and in general around intimacy because they're just speaking different languages entirely, right? And if you're not speaking the sexual, it can be really hard. If you're with the sexual and they want to fuck every day and they want you to be naked all the time and they want their orgasm now and they're pissed if they're not getting enough climaxes and getting fed enough in that blueprint. And they actually sexuals need sex to relax, right? Where other blueprints like the energetic and especially the sensual need to relax. So the energetic needs to feel more connected and have a kind of different space around that. But the sensuals need to relax to have sex, right? So, I mean, this is a big issue I see all the time.
And it only, again, because of that stereotype that men tend to live in that sexual blueprint. They're visual creatures. They tend to get aroused more quickly. They tend to be the ones that are saying, well, why can't we do the things? And then the female is, well, hold on a second. It's because I'm juggling 60,000 things in my brain and I'm trying to make that leap between ultimate cosmic power of our household and being able to do this with you. And I have had this conversation quite recently with a few people around perimenopause. Has my libido just gone to die? Because I used to be able to become aroused a lot more quickly, or there was more spontaneous. So this is something that I was really curious to ask you about in this episode is, as relationships age, okay, I'm not necessarily saying people, I'm just saying the relationship. The longer you've been in a particular relationship with the same person, it is natural to have a transition between spontaneous and to responsive desire. How does that work in a sexual blueprint who tends to be more zero to go?
Well, I would say the sexual blueprint, it suffers the most because in long-term relationships, essentially the eroticism dies. You don't have the honeymoon period, which is pure chemicals.
Yep.
Pure chemistry, right? Of that new relationship energy. And so the more secure and the more comfortable that you become with your partner, the more in love, right? The more that the attraction and the eros actually leaves at some point. There's too much entanglement, enmeshment, and comfortability. Eros dies. And what you're doing, basically, it becomes what Jez is a groove, becomes a rut, becomes a grave. Right?
So how many of you are like laughing or going, oh shit, that sounds really accurate?
Yeah. Now, the good news is there's tried and true methods to turn that around that work with changing brain chemistry in terms of practices and having an intimacy plan, working with a coach like myself and learning the passion trifecta, as Jaya calls it. We won't get into it right now. Actually, I think that came from Jack Morin originally, who wrote The Erotic Mind. But there's a lot of ways to turn the sinking ship around. And the fact is that too many people just go down on the ship, right? And it's easier to get divorced and find someone new and then get that new relationship energy again. And then again, you're back on the Titanic. So I really encourage to people learn the brain chemistry and what's really going on here and how to change things, how to create the spark again. Right. And a major part of that is, what are our blueprints? And are you feeding me in mine? And am I feeding you in yours? And am I feeding myself in my blueprints so that I actually have turn on in my body? Because if we don't use it, we lose it. And a lot of the patterns in relationships too is that people get stagnant. They think, well, my partner should just get me off and that should be my sex life. No, you should be turning yourself on every day and generating more energy of your turn on in your life, your creativity, your aliveness, right? I just want to circle back for a second to, according to the research that Jai has done, or her company's done with, like, they've said 3 million blueprint quizzes have been taken now.
Wow.
Right? So they have a lot of statistics. The blueprints are pretty even amongst all genders and people.
That's fascinating.
So we might think men are more wired sexually. There's a little bit more of that in some ways with the women in the sensual, but that's not a big thing actually. And so men that aren't wired sexually get really screwed. And a lot of them end up, from my experience, coming to get help because they have different, whether it's premature ejaculation or delayed ejaculation, or they think they're not sexual, or they just feel broken or whatever it is because they're not doing 0 to 60. But that's only one blueprint and one way to be turned on. And it's obviously not their highest one. Or it might be that they're highest in the sexual, but they are having some type of sexual challenge, which makes it even hard. If you're a sexual blueprint and your genitals aren't working the way you want them to and the way that they have in the past, this is a real problem, right? This is no, you gotta fix this, right? It can't be this broken because they ride on it for their well-being, right? And that's just when you have a high sexual and then suddenly the partner's in a different doesn't want to do all the honeymoon stuff anymore. Now everything's changed. Well, this person's starving for sex, right?
Yeah.
And it's really hard to get across sometimes when I have couples and like I've got a high sexual and like they're starved. Oh my God, they're desperate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And their partner's just like, well, why can't we just once a week?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's fucking boring and we do it the same way every single time. And I'm tired in this and I want more. And, you know, and the shapeshifter always wants more of all of it, but we'll stick within this blueprint, the sexual really does need frequency. So I personally think that high sexuals might be more prone to cheating, possibly than other blueprints, because sex is just like another way of food and what they need to survive, right? And they're not all caught up in it being necessarily some major spiritual transformational thing. And it will also just more likely to have porn addiction and things like that too, right? Because it's just the simplicity and the sexual, the visuals and so forth.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll dive for a moment into the shadows, right? Because we're starting to talk about them. So a big shadow for sexuals, right? If they go from 0 to 60, well, sexuals are like, do we need foreplay or care? What is this, right?
Yeah.
I also find that sexuals can be some of the hardest to get into my office, right? Because their partners come in, but they're like, it's sex. Let's just do it. We don't need to talk to someone about it. We don't need to learn something new about it. We just need to do it. That's it.
It's very straightforward, guys.
Yeah. We just need to do it more often. Right? So they miss the journey, right? Of the foreplay, the aftercare, all the beautiful ways to play instead of 0 to 60. A lot of times they are missing all of the multi-orgasmic experiences because they're just going for the climax hard and fast, right? Let's get there. Let's do it. Okay, good. Now I can rest a little. Now I have some relief.
Now it's time to sleep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the sexual has a lot of energy, testosterone, primal, right? And nothing wrong with that. Don't we all want some of that or a lot of that in the bedroom? I do, right?
Yeah.
But can we also do a gourmet meal of 5 hours of different sexual play, right?
Right.
And for sexuals, they might really miss what their partner's needs are because they're so intent on their drive and what they really need, and and especially if they're starving and they're already missing out on it, right? Yeah. Let me see. What else would be shadows? I think that's just some of them that we've covered so far. That's pretty good. Sexuals, speaking wise, right? It's just kind of, they can be, and not every sexual likes to talk dirty, but right, it would kind of come with the territory. The whole talk dirty. I mean, that's such a stupid way of saying things, but it helps people know what I mean when I say that, right? Like, cock, pussy, right?
Yeah.
Like, fuck.
Yeah.
Let's go, right? And they like that. The sexual is penetrative.
Yes.
Right?
The energy is,
The energy is like, it's fast and it's penetrative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is great. But do we want 100% of only that all the time? I could probably take about 5 days straight of that, and then I'd be like, all right, let's try something else today.
Well, I was thinking about what you were saying about language too, and it kind of dovetails with like where our next episode. So make sure you subscribe, and follow this, guys, because we're going to hit the kinky blueprint next, which has a lot of misconception around it also, which is why I love that we're having these conversations. But using that kind of language could feel like a kink to some people because it's edgy. And there are some people that get straight up uncomfortable I mean, just think about the title of the book, Pussy, A Reclamation. She addresses it. Mama Gina calls it out right in the beginning of the book. I am intentionally...
No one wanted to publish it, and then it became a bestseller.
Absolutely. And she goes, I am telling you that I am using this word to reclaim the power of it because it is seen as offensive for so many people. And so like when you are a sexual blueprint, using that word, it's just like another day at the office. You don't think about it because it has the edginess of the energy of this blueprint.
Yep, exactly. The penetrative quality, and simple, right? Mm-hmm. Call it for what it is. Just like we don't need to talk about it or go to therapy because we should just be fucking.
Mm-hmm. That's all. It'll solve everything.
It'll solve everything. We just
what's the issue?
Do it more. Yeah, exactly. Right. I do agree with that a bit. But I'm a shapeshifter, so I would get bored if my partner only was in the sexual. I have been bored with sexual blueprints. Mm-hmm. I found being with someone that's too high sexual and doesn't have a good balance of the other blueprints, mm-hmm. I get turned off. I find it actually just kind of crude. It doesn't work for me. At first, I'm like, yeah, let's fuck. You're right. Let's go. And then eventually I'm like, but I'm missing my tantra and my sensual and the kinky, right? It's like eating one meal the rest of your life, people. Mm-hmm. I mean, some people are okay with that, but really, does your body want to explore some different things in this realm? Mm-hmm. Right? And especially, multiple orgasms and riding the waves, which so many times the sexuals miss out on, right? Mm-hmm. They're in such a hurry to get somewhere, get to the orgasm. Another shadow is they can get really pissed. There a lot of resentment can be built up when a sexual doesn't get the release that they need, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know for myself that in the past when I had partners a long time ago, like they'd be like typical men sexual partners that come and then fall asleep, right?
Yes.
And I'm like, dude, we just got started. Hello, my body's on fire. Let's go for like 3 more hours or more, right? Mm-hmm. He's passed out asleep. And now I have to lay in bed and make myself come to get to sleep, to relax, right? Because my sexual blueprint's so high. And I used to build up so much resentment.
Yeah.
Having to do that. Right? No, you go to bed when I'm also satisfied.
Yes. Yes. And my body's built for a lot more, friend.
Right. So you might have to learn beyond just one blueprint so that you can play in the big leagues. Right?
Before we go deeper into this, if you're listening and thinking, I want more of this kind of conversation, the Rebel Frequency Inner Circle is where we continue in. It's a private space with 1 bonus episode each month, plus small practices and a community of women doing this work in real life. You can join us through the link in the show notes. All right, back to the show. Step into the arena, friend. I will show you what you are missing out on.
And everyone can do it. This is not something weird. Everyone can do it. I can teach anyone how to play in all the blueprints. That's what I do. I take all my clients through learning in depth all the blueprints, playing in each one.
I'm still laughing about the bringing you up to the big leagues, friend.
Yeah.
But it is. It's learning to speak multiple languages. Mm-hmm. And oh man, how many times have I heard clients say things like, yeah, I'm thinking about a conversation I had quite recently. She goes, I hate to say it. She goes, because I love him, but he's a 2-pump jump and then we're all done. And like, that's it. And I lay there and go, well, that was nice. Yeah. But now what?
Exactly. Exactly.
It just seemed really relevant.
It is relevant. The 2-pound chump would definitely fall. Well, it could be in any of the shapeshifters don't do that. If they were sick, no. Just kidding. Even then, a shapeshifter was like, no, we don't do that.
Yep.
If they're in the positive sides. But yeah. And again, that's kind of the norm, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I forget what the recent statistic is, but most people have sex for under 10 minutes from start to finish.
Yep.
Okay. Like,
Yeah.
wow. But wait, the average woman's body takes 45 minutes to get fully aroused if she's not a high sexual blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And even if she is a high sexual blueprint, she still might take that long. And it's because women have a different structure in terms of, we talked about this in other podcasts people should go look at as well. But yeah, it's, and the foreplay is so important for like the sensual and the aftercare and the energetic, needing the eye contact and the real connection, right?
Mm-hmm.
So before I forget, I'll just bring up sexual blueprint, right? A lot of times you don't have to like toys if you're in the sexual blueprint, but a lot of times they do. This is called the big boss. A client said this to me. I'm like, that is so sexual blueprint. That thing is just real.
This is why I said you need to go watch the YouTube video.
Oh, yeah. So I'm holding up a big purple dildo. It looks just like a cock, a circumcised cock. And it's quite the toy. Too big for me. But it's funny because it is that sexual blueprint, right? Or like, I love this. This just screams sexual blueprint, right? A toy for men. So it's a sleeve, but it has a mouth on it. So it's like a pussy, but it has a mouth. So it gives you the vibration and suction. And the name is absolutely perfect for sexual blueprint. This is the Fuckomatic Elite.
I don't think I've ever heard anything so sexual blueprint in my life.
Right? It's better. The threesome you've always dreamed of.
Wow.
The Fuckomatic fucks your cock and licks your balls at the same time. So sexual. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But also, like, I'm holding out a tongue. Right? Oh.
Oh,
Right?
wow. Yeah.
Very sexual blueprint toy.
Yep.
And I'm comparing these people because if you went back and you look at the energetic, I'm pulling out crystals and wands and the sensual feathers and very different objects than what we're doing here, right? We have a special clit sucker. A clit sucker, right? It's meant to get you off over and over again on the 9,000 nerve endings of your clit.
Yes.
That's the job. That is sexual blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But I'll just point out quickly, because I don't think I've done this in another episode. It's all about how you use the sensation play item, whether you call it a sex toy or sensation. I like to put everything in sensation play.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I have a fork here. And I could use this fork energetically to turn myself on and play with it in my energetic field, or very lightly, barely touching my skin. I could then go sensual with it. Oh, it's cold though, which is not, the sensual doesn't like cold. So I'd have to warm it up first. And then I could go sensual, very light, but like a little massagey kind of feel. Maybe put some oil on it and warm it up would be sensual. For sexual, I'm just going to take the fork and I'm going to tap my nipple or my lips, right? Or play with my genitals. Very straightforward of like, go for the genitals, go for what the sexual wants, right? And obviously for kinky, I might scratch myself with it or smack myself or do something that way. But it's the way that you approach something and how you use it, right? So coming back to just as an example, right? So if you have the high energetic, right, and their partner is a high sexual, and the sexual just is like stares at their breasts, like, oh, want those, right? I want to eat them. I want to eat her up, him up. And, or like they come up to you, whether it's whatever gender, it's just, I've had partners that were not high sexual and I'm in my high sexual and I'll just grab their cock. And it's like, like, what are you doing? Not cool. That did not turn me on when you just grabbed my cock, right? Whereas a high sexual, like for me, I'm like, grab my pussy, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't agree with Trump doing it, of course, for anybody that's not wanting it. I'm using this as an example of when someone's bisexual and they do want their pussy grabbed by a particular person. It's okay to want and like that.
Yes, boundaries and permission here. We're talking about boundaries and permission. With boundaries and permission, that can be very arousing for somebody who lives in this blueprint.
Very, right? Yeah.
There's a commanding aspect to it, the directness.
Yeah. Yeah. Fast, penetrative, can grab, right? Grab those tits, smack that ass. Well, maybe not smack the ass because that could be more kinky, but grab that ass. You know, it's like, give it to me, right? Like, I want it now. Feed me. It's sexual. It's primal energy, right? Yeah. Well, and just the whole, like, if it's fast and furious, like a quickie, right? Sexuals can be like, so what? Let's just do it anywhere, anytime. Give it to me now. That doesn't work for a lot of other types of bodies and blueprints.
Yeah.
It's just
the versatility is really important because sexuals can be you don't need a user's manual. There's some jokes out there about women's bodies need a user manual and men's bodies, it's just a switch on or off. I hate that. It drives me friggin' bananas because it's exactly that. It's a lie. It's not true. Women can be on or off. Like, it can be that direct. Sometimes it's situational, though, too. You could have somebody who is highly sexual, but if they are being forced into a role that requires a lot of their energy, cerebral energy, physical energy, this could be child rearing, this could be planning trips, this could be a really intellectually demanding job, like all of those kinds of things. It doesn't mean that she's not sexual. It means that she needs a transition, a bridge between needing to do that and let's fuck. It's just
although that's different. Sensual blueprint needs a transition. Yeah. Sexual, I mean, maybe a sexual, it's never cut and dry, right? Because they bleed into each other and we're all just morphing and changing all the time. But in general, sexual can just be like 1 minute doing one thing and the next be like, let's go. I'm ready.
I've had a frustrating day. Let's just take care of this.
Yeah. Well, and I feel really awful for myself included, having been in this position before, of you have high sexual and you're not getting sex and you're not being fed for whatever reason. I was in a relationship where the partner had low testosterone, right? And was dealing with that. And I've been with narcissists that fuck you around and they don't want to give you the sex you want for a lot of reasons, that it's another mind control game. And they'll shame you for your sexuality and blueprints and so forth. So anyways, when you're not getting what you need sexually, it can feel so bad. You just feel broken. You're so hungry. You're so hungry and you just feel so broken because your life is better when you're having sex all the time. You're getting fed in your blueprints. Your body functions at a higher capacity. You have more output in the world and creativity. Everything's better, right? So it's really hard when, like, I get so many couples where there's high sexuals and they're just starving and their partner's just they're so far in their shadows of their own blueprints and so forth, they're just not getting it. And a lot of times, ladies, this does tend to be this major menopausal myth. I just can't stand that it's okay to close shop and be like, no, we're just not as sexual anymore. Libido's down. I'm going through menopause or whatever. Guess what? You'll feel better the more sex you actually have, but it has to be good sex and it has to be in your blueprints. It has to actually feed your body, right? Yeah. But it will balance your hormones. It'll create greater for you instead of this shutting down that can happen. And believe me, I know, because I've seen myself go like, ooh, what the? And then I'm aware enough and I'm like, I don't want that. That doesn't, I want to go back up. So what do I need to do? Yep. Right? What do I need to do to boost my energy back and get my sexual on again?
I think that some of that, yes, there's a hormonal component to the change in libido, but I also think that some of it in like perimenopause truly has to do with the fact that you are stepping into integrity with who you are and you don't want to accept anything less than what feels good to you.
Yes.
And if the previous way that you've played, you've accommodated your partner for the good of the people, right? Because estrogen is that softening hormone and makes you compromise your ass off a little bit more than you would normally.
And we're trained to be that way.
We are.
Yeah.
We're totally socialized to be that way. But I feel like sometimes when I'm having these conversations, and I'm interested on your insight in this, that it might be more that they're using the hormones as an excuse to get out of things that aren't satisfying because they're unwilling to tolerate what they don't want anymore.
Absolutely. And then it can be hard to even have conversation. First, I find so many women don't know what they even want. Yes. Not only do they just know I don't want this, but they have no idea what they actually want, what feels good to them. And they may have had one type of orgasm, like the clitoral, which I call a pelvic sneeze. And yeah, okay, pelvic sneezes are awesome, but they do get boring and old because your body is capable of at least 20 types of orgasms. And so that's where, again, like learning how to have all the orgasms, finding out what your body really likes, what makes her come alive with pleasure and being fed. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So definitely take your quiz, guys.
Yeah.
Like, just take the quiz, find out what you are. And if you have taken it before and you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I already know what my blueprint is, that can shift.
Oh, yeah.
As you go through your life. Yeah. So don't.
It will shift.
It will shift. Yeah.
And the quiz itself is your mind taking the blueprint quiz. And that's not completely accurate a lot of times. So when you come into my office or we work virtually together, I have all kinds of erotic games and ways to teach you and explorations to come to what your core erotic blueprints really are and to get out of the shadows of any of the shadows you might be in, all of that. But essentially, we've mentioned this a few times in these podcasts. Everyone should watch Sex, Love, and Goop on Netflix. Which shows a whole series of great different types of sex and relationship and intimacy modalities. I do all of them except for episode number 5. Jaya is prominent in these teaching the blueprints, and there's this wonderful, she's taking different couples through, these experiences. And one of them is the wife's like, I don't want to get pregnant before I've had any good orgasms. Right? And I just haven't with him. And then it turns out that he comes across as a high sexual blueprint, right? And the quiz said he was high sexual. But yet when he's on the table experiencing some of the touch practices and the ways of testing the blueprints on his body, suddenly He's getting energetic touch and he has a full-blown energetic orgasm, goes into tears and multiple energetic orgasms, and is forever more changed. You'll have to watch the show to see what happens to this man. But Jaya points out that a lot of times men have the sexual blueprint masking high energetic.
Yes, absolutely. And again, it comes back to how we're socialized, right? Men are socialized to be, yes, they're visual creatures by nature, but that isn't always the turn on point for them.
That's right.
It could be a piece of the overall puzzle, but it may not be what it is that really flips the switch for them.
That's right.
So
great example of that, I'll just say quickly too. Jaya describes in her book how when she was pulling these blueprints out and creating and realizing these different dynamics and energies post-child with her partner Ian, their sex life completely tanked. And when she came back from after she was in healing from the birth and different things, she was in her high sexual blueprint. And she was like, chop, chop, let's go, let's fuck. Literally one time in a hotel room, looked at him while they had like 15 minutes in between a teaching class and went, chop, chop, drop your pants, now let's go. Mm-hmm. And he was just like,
yeah, I can't do this with you.
So she had one foot out the door, and that on this time period where she was all high sexual, she went and did a whole bunch of pole dancing and striptease classes, right? And was like putting on this amazing show for him. And it's just like blank face, right?
Mm-hmm,
like here she's crying every night in bed thinking I'm broken. He doesn't want to have sex with me. Here I am. I've written every book. I've written 20 books on the best sex techniques. I'm crying in bed. My lover won't have sex with me. Right. And meantime, he's trying to come up behind her and hold her. And she's like, oh, no, don't touch me. I don't want to cuddle again. But he was high sensual blueprint at that time. He's trying to relax, connect to comfort, to then move into sex. And the visuals of all the striptease and everything wasn't doing it for him, right? And definitely the 15-minute quickie with the chop, chop, let's go, was not a turn on. His sexual, and actually it was interesting because Ian did talk about this at a point as well. His estrogen went through the roof, which happens a lot for men, especially if the baby's in the bed. Right? And
oh, yeah. We have that lived experience. Yes.
I have a feeling you might be able to speak to that.
The baby is in the bed and he won't get out. We've tried.
Yeah. That can be like, I mean, for men, their estrogen really does go up. And therefore, when estrogen's up, for a man, that's not going to be the sexual blueprint.
Yes, the baby is in the bed. It really does. It changes how your body chemistry responds. And for people who have had a very high sexual blueprint for a very long time, and then now this little human is in the bed, it changes everything. So, your life stage can influence how your blueprint is presenting itself, what it is that you need, because you can still be in the same blueprint, but maybe you need a different set of things that pertain to that blueprint in order to be able to be responsive in the ways that you want.
Yeah.
So
fed out of the shadows. So where you're in the shadows of where things are being challenged and causing a lack of arousal or a stop to arousal. The shadows are like putting where the brakes come on, right? And the positive side is where you get the acceleration. Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad you brought that up. I love it, actually. The blueprint reports, when you get when you pay for one and you get the 30 page or something like that, Blueprint report, they actually do cover in their sexuality stages. And that's something I work with clients with all the time because we go through different states or stages as well. And if you understand that and you know where you are and you know where your partner is and you know where you want to be, right? Or you're good where you are or whatever it is, it's another dynamic way of having conversations that are so important to get more aligned.
Absolutely. Because just because you're aging doesn't mean that you become asexual.
The opposite, if you really tune into your body. Yeah.
Because you're stripping away the bullshit and you're stepping into your truth.
Right. Exactly. And the clitoris grows, people. Isn't that funny? Did anybody ever tell you that? No one ever knows that our clitoris grows. All of our sexual energy can grow. Everything can shift and get greater and more expansive. And actually, I just wanted to touch on, we've touched on this in other parts too. For high sexuals, for women, right? Just in terms of perimenopause, menopause, there is a shift of energy flow in the body from the genitals as the main center, generally speaking, because we're still creating babies, it's where we have the ability to. When that changes, guess what? Now all the energy's here. So a lot of times a woman who's high sexual, she thinks she's not sexual. She just needs her breasts touched all the time, like a way more than you would think. If you're stimulating her genitals, have another hand on those breasts and in the heart chakra. Make that connection so that she's getting fed here. You might see an incredible difference of how some things open up in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Chinese medicine, it looks at the shift in the Bao Mai, the relationship between the heart and the womb. That's exactly what you're articulating from my training background. And so instead of being from heart to womb for the creation of life, that reverses direction so that it goes from womb to heart to create your life. This is why we become so unfiltered around what we want, what we don't want. We become very heart-centric and heart-knowing and intuitive. Our intuition goes up like crazy amounts. But it also means that our threshold for accepting anything less than what we want goes down. And especially when you are a sexual blueprint, that can all of a sudden be a very abrupt shift for your partner. It might even be like life altering for your partner, positively or negatively, depending on what their blueprint is.
Exactly.
So I'm so glad you brought that up because I think this is the big misnomer around perimenopause too, there's just this understanding, God, I had this conversation yesterday, that my libido just up and died. And it's, and I encouraged them to take the quiz, both of them.
Yeah.
And I said, and if you want more help with this, I have a person. There's just this socially accepted understanding that perimenopause and your older years means that you become less of a sexual being.
Yeah.
And especially when you're a sexual blueprint, it just feels like you're going to be put out to pasture.
That's
like
basically it, right? They like to put women out to pasture. And it is a societal construct that is so asinine and so destructive and just complete false narrative. And what I did in my early years of study in academia, tons of work on ancient goddess cultures in terms of looking at empowering women and especially empowering adolescent girls and so forth. If you look at ancient cultures, goddess or not, you're going to find the goddesses for the older women.
Yes.
That were in their full sexual and overall power, right? They were in their fire. their power, just to whatever element, but power. They had come to terms with all of this and really were in the embodiment of these energies. And that is frightening for
Well, especially as men age and they start dealing with challenges around circulation and enlarged prostate and erectile dysfunction and like all of these things that tend to
all can be healed. All can be healed. All part of the changes that happen with bodies and toxins that have built up and false education around how bodies work and so forth. So yeah, just like it's arousal issues on both sides, right? And a lot has to do with nitric oxide, which stops being produced. Well, it starts going down after the age of 25, the production in our body. And just like testosterone, there's a war on all of these good chemicals that keep us healthy, because I don't know if anyone hasn't noticed lately, there is this overarching focus in the world to keep people on drugs forever and make them as unhealthy as possible. I'll just say it. That is clearly what's going on. So if you want to get in touch with your sexual energy, right, and reverse that, well, that doesn't make big pharma any more profits, but it will make you happier and healthier. And you'll live longer.
Absolutely. Have more sex. That's the root of the story right there.
Yeah. The sexual, right? That would be like summing it up. The sexual would be like, have more sex. Right? Absolutely. Do it more often. Right now.
Right now. Right now.
We don't need to talk
Let's
about
go.
Yeah. Chop, chop.
So if you were to leave our audience with any final thoughts, what would those be?
Really feel into your body and notice if you've had any like anything that resonated or didn't, or that came up of or pushing against, or what felt like, actually, that might be me kind of thing. Notice in each of these episodes, these podcasts that we do, play with these dynamics of these blueprints. Do take the quiz. It is so valuable beyond words that I could give to find out how you're erotically wired and how your body's erotically wired and how any other bodies you do or want to play with, how they are as well. Because otherwise you can just keep so many couples, as you see it too, they're just spinning their wheels over and over again with the same dynamics of the push and pull and the nobody's getting fed. And it's just, because you have to learn the other's language and you have to look at this from a different perspective.
Yeah, it's so important.
Yeah.
It's so important. And I find that people are so much quicker to pick up the love languages book than they are looking at eroticism.
Yes.
And yet it is part of the fabric of what makes us human, and particularly for women, because it speaks to our creative center.
Yeah.
And it's generative. For men, it can be depleting, and too many ejaculatory orgasms actually depletes their vital energy.
That's right.
But for women, it's generating.
Yes.
You need it.
Yes.
For longevity.
Yes. Yes.
I cannot emphasize that enough. So go check it out.
Keeps the doctor away.
I love that. All of Sacha's information is in the show notes. The link to be able to get a hold of this quiz is in the show notes. Please check it out. And as always, thank you so much for joining us, Sacha. And until next time, everybody. If you're listening to this and feel like there's still something here for you, like the conversation isn't quite finished in your body yet, that's exactly why I created the Rebel Frequency Inner Circle. It's a private space where we go deeper, with one bonus episode each month, small ritual practices, and a community of women who are actually living this work. It's just $5 a month. You can join through the link in the show notes. Come stay in the conversation.